Hello there. Today, let's discuss the importance of hygiene in catering establishments. Now, catering is a huge part of hospitality. When we say hospitality, it is the meeting the needs of guests with kindness, goodwill, warmth while they are away from their homes. Now, this hospitality can be done either socially or on a commercial level. But this term hospitality is derived from the Latin word hospice, which means host or guest. So, we are talking about the hospitality industry, which deals with food, with drinks, with accommodation. And this industry has grown exponentially in the last few decades. It has grown so much, and because of which the sanitary practices in this industry have become much more complex. The reason is the food preparation and the food processing has shifted from the manual labor into a more mechanized, more large volume processes. Like you can see in the picture over here, there is bread dough getting baked in an industrial oven. So when you have such mechanized tools coming in, when you have such big equipments coming in for the preparation or for the handling of the food or for the processing of the food, it becomes very important for the workers who are working there, for the staff who are working there, for the food handlers to understand sanitary practices and food hygiene. Now, sanitary practices includes all the methods, the procedures, even the chemicals that we use for cleaning the equipment, the entire design of the facilities, all of these practices which are in place for ensuring that there is a clean environment wherever the food is getting prepared or where the food is getting handled. That is what you call as the sanitary practice. And the food hygiene refers to the personal cleanliness and habits of the person who is handling the food or the person who is preparing the food, the process of preparation of the food, that the food itself, the meat or the vegetable itself, how hygienic that is, how clean that is what comes under food hygiene. So in this video, we'll be focusing on the food hygiene part, and we can look at the sanitary practices in the next video. Now, why is this important? Why do we need to look at the sanitary practices, or why should we look at the food hygiene? It's because it is important for the health of the consumers. We have to guard the health of the consumers, of the people who are eating this food. So if their health is guarded, it ensures, and guarded from what? Guarded from food poisoning or foodborne illnesses. It ensures that it pushes the health of the nation, of the population. Why is that coming over here? Safe food is any food which is free of contaminants and which is not causing illness or not causing harm. So if there is safe food, that is promoting the good health of the entire population of that region. And when the population of the region or of the nation is getting better in health because the food is good, of good quality, it will push the progress of the nation and eventually lead to sustainable development. So it's very important that we provide safe food. It's not a choice, it's not an option. It has to be made a mandate that in a country, everybody gets safe, clean food and water. So every year we see thousands of people who are suffering from food poisoning due to food that looks normal or tastes normal or smells normal but actually is contaminated with microorganisms. Microorganisms are these tiny organisms, tiny individuals who are present everywhere around us, including the food we eat, and then they go inside your body and cause some troubles. So these microorganisms can either spoil the food, that is called as food spoilage, which we'll be looking at in our future videos, or they can cause a foodborne illness, that is, they can get inside your body and cause some disease. Now, these microorganisms, when they cause diseases, when they cause foodborne illnesses, it shows up in the form of diarrhea or abdominal pain. There could be cramping, stomach cramps, vomiting, nausea, or in some cases, it can even become fatal. The person can die. So we need to make sure, this is why we need to make sure that safe food is not just an option for people who are privileged. No, safe food has to become a mandate. People who are handling the food should know about food hygienic practices, about sanitary practices, so that we can ensure that everybody in that area, in that nation, is having access to safe food. So there are a few aims of food hygiene. The first aim is to prevent the food from spoiling due to contamination. What do you say? What is the meaning of contamination? Contamination is basically the introduction of this microorganism into that food. And why is that happening? It could happen due to clean environmental conditions around the food, unclean environmental conditions, or due to poor food hygiene practices, or because of lack of awareness. The people who are handling don't know that they have to keep the food safe. Any of these could be the reasons, but our job, our aim is to prevent food from spoiling due to such a contamination. Secondly, orienting the food handlers on how to practice the safe food handling, or how to have sanitary practices, how to clean the environment. We need to continuously orient the staff, orient the food handlers about hygienic practices. Extending the shelf life of the product by clean processing, ensuring that whatever you do to the food, it is being done in an utmost clean manner, so that you can even extend the shelf life of the product. The product can live longer. And finally, if there is an unsafe food, ensuring that that is not released into the market, because if it is released into the market, it can cause foodborne illnesses. So these are the aims of food hygiene. But how do we get the food hygiene? So when we say food hygiene, that is basically the processes that are in place, the practices which are in place to minimize the risk of foodborne illnesses and safeguard the public health. Now, when we say the processes which are in place, it includes the processes of storing, handling, preparing the food and drink in such a way that you minimize the risk of people contracting illness after eating that food. That is the meaning of food hygiene. You can say, in other words, that food hygiene is the biological aspect of keeping the food safe. We are talking about safe food. So, the biological aspect, how do I keep the food safe, and what are the processes that are involved in it? That is what you call as the food hygiene. How do we get this? By the four C's, mainly the four C's. What are these four C's? The first C is cleaning. We need to ensure that there is thorough, efficient cleaning of the food item, the vegetable or the fruit or the meat product that we have in hand, and even the surfaces where we are using, the equipments that we are using, the tools that we use, our hands, all of the things that come in contact with the food, and the food itself has to undergo thorough cleaning. That is very, very important. Secondly, the cooking part of it. So we need to ensure complete cooking, thorough cooking. Not only cooking, even the reheating. When you are reheating food, the food has to be piping hot when you serve it. At least 63 degrees Celsius the food should be when you serve it. This is because the center part of the food, especially this comes to with respect to meat, when the central part of the food will have microorganisms, so you need to make sure that even they are killed, and that can happen only if you heat the food well. So reheating of the food, cooking the food properly is also an important aspect of ensuring that food hygiene is getting maintained. Preventing cross contamination. What does cross contamination mean? It means that the microorganisms are entering from something which is present in the same vicinity. That is what you call as cross contamination. So microorganisms spread between equipment, between the foods, between the surfaces. How does it spread between the foods? If you keep a raw meat in touch with cucumber that you have planned for a salad, there what is happening over there? You're not going to cook the cucumber, so the microorganisms from the raw meat now enter the cucumber in the salad, and you're serving that salad to the customers. So that is how the organisms are getting cross contaminated from the food. Or if you use the same chopping board, you use the same chopping board for raw meat, and then you use the same board without washing for vegetables which are going to be served raw, there again you are contaminating the food, cross contaminating the food. So you need to ensure that raw food does not touch ready to eat food, food which is going out for serving. Ensure that raw food, whether it is vegetables or meat, do not touch that food, because then you are having a high risk of contamination by microorganisms over there. Ensuring that the equipments are separate. For meat it is separate, like you use separate chopping boards, or you disinfect the equipment before you use them. For foods, you store the food in a safe manner. That is what is shown over here. Even the storing of food has to be done in a very systematic, in a very, a safe way, so that cross contamination does not happen. And lastly, the chilling of foods. So chilling is a method that is done for preventing the growth of organism may be there, but it does not grow above the permissible limits. So you chill the food, you keep it in the refrigerator, in some cases you freeze the food, but that has to be done in the correct way, especially for foods like salads or fruits which are served raw. They spoil very easily at the room temperature. So you need to make sure that you keep such foods in the correct conditions, you store them, you chill them in the correct conditions before they are being served, so that we can maintain food hygiene. Now, these are the four C's of food hygiene, but apart from all of these, the topmost priority in food hygiene checklist is the personal hygiene. That is what takes the center stage. You can clean, you can chill, you can avoid cross contamination, but if you don't maintain, if the food handler doesn't maintain good personal hygiene, you will have instances of foodborne illnesses. So, what is the meaning of personal hygiene, or why do we need personal hygiene? See, the person who is handling the food, that is the food handler, he or she himself or herself will be having microorganisms on their body. There will be microorganisms on their skin, there will be microorganisms on their fingers, on their hair, on their face, and these organisms can enter the food that they handle if they do not take care. So it is very important for food handlers to keep clean at all times. And how can they do that? The first thing that is told in any kitchen you enter into is the hand washing. Hand washing is very, very important. It has to be done frequently, and it has to be done for at least 20 seconds. That is what is recommended by the CDC. So you need to ensure that you wash hands with soap, with hot water every time, when after you visit a toilet, or after you have handled waste, after smoking, or after you have combed your hair, after you have cleaned a particular surface, after you have gone out into the open or met someone in the on the road, all of these, or after handling raw meat also, you need to make sure that you have washed your hands so that you do not cross contaminate a food. Another thing to be taken care is that the nails have to be kept short, because within the nails, under the nails, a lot of dirt accumulates, and this dirt is a breeding ground for microorganisms. They love this dirt. So you have to make sure that the nails are short, and you ensure that you wash hands frequently to avoid cross contamination. Further, you have to wear protective clothing. So the person should be always wearing clean clothing, clean overalls, or clean aprons should be worn by the person. The person who's handling the food should have some sort of a headgear, or a net or a hat for covering the hair, because hair is a place from where the microorganisms can easily fall into the food. The person should avoid wearing jewelry, especially if the jewelry or the rings are having, or if the watches which are having glass pieces or stones, these should be avoided, because they may fall into the food and then cause risk to the customer, to the consumer, whoever is eating the food. The person should have proper footwear, clean footwear, and preferably footwear which is worn only inside that kitchen. So it should not be the regular footwear where what the person wears outside on the streets. This should be clean footwear, specially designed for wearing inside the kitchen. So all of these, or gloves should be worn. All of these are measures, or uh, things which a person who is handling food can ensure that they are doing, so that food hygiene and personal hygiene is being maintained. Additionally, any kind of illnesses or any kind of cuts or wounds should be reported to the person in charge, so that such people do not they do not have open food handling. That is, anybody who is having a respiratory tract disorder, they have a cough or a cold, or if they have some sort of boils, or if they have some gastric illnesses and they are visiting the bathroom frequently, or if they are having some wounds or cuts on their body parts, such people may are having more chances of transferring the microorganism into the food. So they should not handle open food until that heals. So they need to report such illnesses to their managers. We also need to make sure that handling of the food should be done with the appropriate equipments, not only wearing gloves, but also using such tools like tongs or ladles, not handling the food directly with your hands. Even if you wash your hands, it is best to avoid touching hands to the food while serving. We need to ensure that we are giving safe food to the customer. So to do that, we need to keep all of these things in mind. The last thing is to avoid smoking. Smoking is strictly prohibited while handling open food, because again, there what we are doing is the smoke may the pieces from the cigarette or from the tobacco may fall into the food. Not only that, you are continuously taking your hand towards your mouth. All of these are chances for the food to get contaminated. So we need to ensure that personal hygiene is being maintained, and we follow the four C's of food hygiene. With all this in place, we can ensure that the food that is present in a catering establishment is hygienic and is safe for the consumers. I hope this was useful to all of you. See you all in the next one as well. Thank you.